Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Pain, Heart, and Home Healing After Loss. You guys are in for a real treat today because I have someone with me that I believe literally every woman on planet Earth can relate to in some way, benefit from knowing her, learn from her, grow from her. She's just such an incredible woman, and I'm so excited to literally just chat with her today. So today I have with me Instagram influencer Leslie Burris. Leslie, thank you so much for being on the show today.
So excited when I saw that you asked me to be on. It was an easy yes for me. I love what you're doing and the work that you're putting out into the world. So thanks for having me. It's so good to hang out.
Aw, thank you so much. I really appreciate that because I look up to you so much. So hearing you say that is like, woo. So gosh, I have so much I want to talk to you about. So I'll try to not ping pong all over the place.
Well, listen, we're women here. We can handle the ping pong. We're good. We're more like true. A pickleball. We're doing pickleball today on this podcast.
Yes, very relevant. I like that analogy. Okay, so I called you an Instagram influencer, which you are, but you're so much more than that. So, you have seven kids, right? That's what we're up to now. Yes. She's got 7 kids. Okay. She's a super inspiring homemaker. You're a businesswoman, an entrepreneur. You started your own business from scratch that benefits children's health. You're so many things. And I can't remember exactly when I started following you, but I think it was shortly after our daughter had died in 2022. And one of the things I love most about you as an influencer is I feel like I really know you. We've never met in person, but I feel like I know you. And I just love that.
Yeah, I'm very purposeful about that. I am actually, a little low down secret for the people who are listening to this. I actually am so disappointed with the influencer space these days that I purposefully position myself to do things different. So to hear that is a high compliment, and it's exactly what I'm going for.
And I know you do, and that's why I'm mentioning it, because I've been on some of your lives before, where you talk about that, and it's so true. I feel like I really know you, and I love that about you, and it's really inspired me to get to know my audience in that way, because I love connecting with people. It's not about going viral for me. It's not about, the likes and the comments. I want to get to know you. I want to help you. I want to be in each other's lives. So, and I'll just be blunt about this. And if you don't want to talk about it, you can be like, I don't want to talk about it, but I'm sure you won't. One of the things I think that made me feel like that right away is one of the first things I ever watched was you give birth live on Instagram. Yeah. And so I want to talk about that for a few minutes because, man, that takes some serious freaking guts. So, what made you decide to do that? And you've done that twice before, I believe, correct? 3 times. Okay, all right. I've only seen it once. So, what made you decide to want to do that?
Well, it was a couple things. Number one, I had my first baby almost 14 years ago. It'll be 14 years this year. And I remember seeing a friend of mine, so home birth is the path that we chose for our kids, but it was because of a friend posting on Facebook saying she gave birth at home and I was pregnant at the time. I'm trying to think how far, I was pretty far along. And actually I was 20 weeks along. And because she posted that online, I decided to leave my OB clinic because I had a super uncomplicated pregnancy. I was a great candidate for home birth. And because she posted that, I literally changed my whole entire healthcare plan and birth plan. And so I knew the power of posting. I know a lot of people say nobody posts things and changes their mind on the internet, but actually I find the opposite quite true. I do feel like the internet is kind of an echo chamber, but it's amazing when you actually, like you said, when you feel like you know someone and you get that sense, you get that connection of I think they really mean what they're saying here. It can actually get you to consider another option. So I did that, and fast forward a few years, so a little backstory. I loved The Wedding Story on TLC when I was a kid, my daughter's age, 12 years old. I loved watching that on TLC. But the thing that I had a question about, I had never seen anyone give birth, and I had never I didn't have any context for what it was going to be like. When I had my first baby, that was my first experience in that space. And so, you know, by the time that I went live the first time, this was my fifth baby, my sixth pregnancy. And so I wanted to help my audience get a behind the scenes look so they could maybe make a decision. Now, that was back in 2019. I had no idea that just 5 months after my son was born, the pandemic was going to hit. And so a lot of people, I think we had like 3,000 to 4,000 people watching me give birth live. It was beautiful. It was 8 hours long, but they saw start contraction to finish golden hour, the birth. And so I did it because, well, number one, I wanted to normalize birth. I wanted to also give people like, what does it really look like the challenges, the breathing through, the care, the midwifery care. And sometimes you can read about all these things. You can go to blogs. You can see the tips and tricks from other influencers on what they did and what they're doing, but we weren't actually there. And so I wanted to, because I love the transparency aspect of influencers, this is why it's a great time to do something different. But when you let people see the whole thing, you can't really deny what happened. You know, if I just share clips of my birth, you're going to make a lot of assumptions about what went on, or you're going to think that was a perfect birth or everything was great and there was no problems. And so I just wanted people to see a real look behind it. And I mean, I obviously calculated the risk. Honestly, I mean, I had to come to the decision, like, I could die on Instagram Live, or my baby could die on Instagram Live, or we could get transferred. Like, I understood that there was a heavy weight. I didn't go into it blindly, just thinking that nothing could happen. But I trusted my body. I trusted my audience, which is a really big deal when you're an influencer. Like, I trust my audience because I've given so much of myself. They have reciprocated and opened up to me too. And so once you give birth once on Instagram, your audience just demands it every time. And so I did it 2 more times, and it's been really beautiful. I've gotten a lot of great feedback. Obviously, there are people who are like, this lady's crazy, but you know what? When it came down to the actual birth time, my people rallied, and they just, again, they got that behind the scenes look of what birth could really look like. And so I wanted to empower women without that sounding cliche, but I wanted them to see that they could do this, that it would be a roller coaster. But yeah, it was literally moms and young kids who were watching me give birth. And it was also a great homeschool assignment for kids. Like, they were getting that anatomy class from a really, really in-depth perspective about birth. And so destigmatization behind birth is really important to me. And I wish that I could have watched somebody do that. And so, you know, I'm kind of that person that says, if I wish I could see it, then why not I try it? You know, why not be the person who gives what they wish they could receive? And so there you have it. That's why I went live. And this last time, I think we had, I don't know how many people were on the live. I feel like it was like 37,000 people or something like that toward the end.
Oh, wow.
It was quite a lot of people watching my last birth, which was, they were all different, by the way. All the births were different. And it was a big gift.
That's like incredible. And I don't remember what the number was. I just remember. So, okay. So how long ago was the most recent time that you did that? Cause that's the one I watched.
Yeah, that was almost 2 years ago. So that was July of 2023. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. So I was 7 months ish postpartum, giving my own birth, but it was a stillbirth. And I remember, so the topic of pregnancy, babies, all of those things, you know, birth was very, very sensitive to me.
Oh, sure.
But I was so captivated. Mm-hmm. And I was wow, I can't even believe I'm already getting emotional. And I knew that you had suffered loss too. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why I was so captivated by watching you, because even though that topic in general was so sensitive and delicate, and I was still so raw and all of the things, I was like, well, first of all, I felt like I already knew you. And so, and also I was like, I cannot stop watching this. I was doing it while I was making dinner, and the kids were getting home, and I'm like all these things, and I'm moving like my phone on my stand, like whatever I was doing, I like put my phone, and it followed me around.
You can't miss it. Once you're committed, you can't just leave. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Exactly. And so it's just a testament to, like you said, like building that trust with your audience. And I love that. And I don't really want to spend too much time talking about that, even though I would love to spend all the time talking to you about that. But I feel like that's not, my audience isn't necessarily trying to, build their own audience. But I would love to learn maybe one day how you build that trust with your audience, because I just love that. So anyways, the birth was amazing. If you ever have any more children, you definitely should do it again. And whoever's listening should definitely watch, because it was beautiful, inspiring. It was just, God, like there was, I'm sure, not one person watching with a dry eye and who felt like encouraged and determined. And, like, I'm sure everybody walked away feeling like, man, I want to do that now,
Oh yeah. So I think someone secretly set up a group. It was like Mama Elbee's baby club. Like after watching the birth, you had a bunch of women like flooding to this group because they wanted to conceive and have a baby. So they were so inspired, and they were all jazzed that they wanted to go and start trying to have children. I was like, yes, that was a bonus that I didn't see coming either.
That is hilarious. I love that. Okay, so so this is a little bit of ping ponging, because I definitely want to talk about the trying to conceive and all that, but I feel like that'll be maybe a little bit deeper. So before we get super deep, I want to ask you about this business that you started, because it's amazing. I mentioned that you started your own company that benefits children's health. I left it vague because I want you to be able to, explain it to everyone. So I know all about it because you talk about it all the time on Instagram, and I love it. I love watching. I have loved watching the process of it literally being an idea in your head and something that you did for your children, and now you're, in your facility and all these things. So I want to give you a chance to share with everyone listening, like, about the company, what it is, what do you sell, like all the things. I want to talk about it.
Yeah. So in order to do that, I kind of have to give a little bit of groundwork as to how I even got in, like, found myself in this position. So about 6 years ago, my hormonal health was really wonky, and I had really bad eczema on my hands. And I had been starting to learn about the benefits of beef liver and just organ meats in general. And I decided to kind of, when they give you an eczema diagnosis, it's more like an elimination game, like take out eggs, remove soy and corn, and like all these things. And so I did, I know it's really trendy to talk about carnivore, but this was like 6 years ago. Nobody else was really doing it. But I decided to do that for like 30 days, and I added organ meats. And when I added organ meats, my eczema went away and my hormones were wonderful. I had more energy than ever. I had a pretty plant-based vegan lifestyle when I was pregnant with my 5th baby. And I was really low on iron. Like, I almost didn't qualify for a home birth because I was borderline anemic. And so when I switched over to organ meats and I incorporated that as a natural multivitamin into my diet, my hemoglobin was amazing in my last 2 pregnancies. And again, I had eczema all over my hands, and it kept it at bay, and I felt really good. And so I started letting my audience know, like, I really lean into this. Like, I think every woman should at least try it. I know that it's not for everyone. There's not a one size fits all supplement for anybody, because we're all so uniquely wired. But I knew probably 80% of the people in my audience would really benefit from giving it a shot. And so moms were having all these testimonies. Their hormones were regulating. They were getting their energy back. But the top question that was coming in is like, how do I give this to my kids? Because it comes in a capsule, and if you break it open, it smells like liver. It's not that delicious. You know what I'm saying? And so this was a couple of years ago where people were asking me, like, how do I give this to my kids? How much do I give to my kids, and things like that. And so, truth be told, you can mix it in applesauce, but my kids didn't love that. And they weren't ready to swallow pills. And then this is kind of where the Elbees, which is the name of our business, was born. For my kids, I really wanted my young babies to be able to take beef liver without having to worry about a capsule or, mixing it on the go or things like that. I wanted it to be as simple for them. And so around Christmas time a couple of years ago, I had this, like, I woke up from like a REM sleep. I had a horrible night's sleep with the baby the night before. And I just had this idea pop into my head, like, oh, you know, those little yogurt melts? Like, I wonder if you could add beef liver to those and then like give your kid a couple of those per day and it would just melt in your mouth. It's great for babies and it like be fun for kids. And so I went to my husband the next day and I was like, I'm thinking about buying a freeze dryer. And I told him why. And I was like, you know, I could make these for my kids really easily. And I knew that there were moms around me who were like, if you make those, like, I'll buy some from you. So I was like, okay, no big deal. And so it started there. I bought one machine. And like you said, I was on Instagram Live, like squirting little drops onto the tray. And it was truly humble beginnings. Like I had no idea it would turn into what it is today, which today we have 5 machines. We have a full-on commercial kitchen operation. Like we have insurance. We have all these things now in place that it's considered a real business. You know, we're grass-fed, grass-finished, organic, and the yogurt melts are, you know, you either love them or you hate them. But for the most part, like I would say 85% of the people who are giving these to their little kids are eating it. So they're taking beef liver every day. And it was definitely one of those things where if you're faithful with a little in the moment, it can snowball into something if you're willing to give it a year or two, if you're willing to follow that process. You know, I didn't just wake up one day and decide to invest $250,000 into a business. Like it was very slow. It was very intentional. It was very, you know, numbers driven. Like, would my audience really want this? There's a lot of, it was funny to hear you say, like, I'm just so encouraged. It's been so fun to watch you. And I'm like, behind the scenes, my knees are shaking every single day because I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work and I don't know what I'm doing. But I was just willing to, I really wanted to see kids be able to take beef liver really simply. I wanted it to be easy for moms. I didn't want them to feel like they had to mix anything up. I just wanted them to be able to pop them and put them on their food tray as they're eating breakfast or whatever. And so Elbee's was born, and now we're just in the thick of it. We're making bites every single day. It's a family operation. We do everything here at our commercial kitchen, and we're packing orders as a family. We're cleaning up as a family. We're promoting as a family. And so it's crazy. And we're actually in a couple stores here in Tulsa. So it's been a really fun journey. And some of the testimonies that come in make it all worth it. You know, little kids being anemic and having low iron and seeing them take Elbees for a month or two and seeing those numbers just completely upgrade has been it keeps me going. You know, I just love that people are getting good nutrition and organ meats are, you know, making a comeback. It's wild. I love it. I'm here for it.
Oh my gosh, that is so amazing. Thank you for sharing that story because oh God, is so encouraging. I know you said like it's funny when I say it's encouraging because you're, you know, the one, your knees are shaking and you're like, what the heck am I doing? Am I doing this right? But and there's a little bit of an aspect where it's like Instagram's a highlight reel, you know, you see the fun parts of the wallpaper going up in your facility and you know, it's like, but I know personally that there's so much more to that. But yeah. It still doesn't take away from loving watching the journey because it's one step at a time. And my favorite thing that you just said was you had a terrible night's sleep and you thought, can I put those in yogurt bites? And that's how this whole thing started. And it's like, I just want everybody to hear that Leslie is building a thriving, incredible company based off after she had a horrible night's sleep, her baby didn't sleep, and she thought, could I shove this beef liver into a yogurt bite? And here she is, like, this is how things start. Like it starts, and like you said, like it's a process. It's not an overnight success. You have to stick it out. You got to grind through, and it can be expensive and all of these things. It's not easy, but it started with this one tiny little thought.
Literally a tiny seed in my pocket. And then the question is, do I want to take the seed and do I want to put it in the ground? And that for me was investing in a $7,000 machine and being willing to, you know, invest in some ingredients and really play around with it. And it really is like we are idea factories. You have 100 ideas every single day. But it really does take action and doing something with that. And I tell myself, like, what is it that I can do today? And what can I do to take a step in the right direction? And so I like the free things first. So the first the first thing I did was like researched machines. I could do that for free. I could go on YouTube. I could see what other people were doing. I could just gather information, but that was the necessary first step. And 100% we look back and Burris is like, my husband is like, remember that one time you woke up one morning and you were like, we should put beef liver in yogurt melts. And he's like, and now we're busy.
And I love it because I love that story. Gosh, I hope everybody hears this, and I hope whoever hears this knows that like that can be you. Like you can do that. And I love that you just mentioned we start with the free. What is at my fingertips literally for free? We start there. But I think a lot of people are afraid to do this because they're afraid of the financial investment. And I get it. Like my husband and I, like I'm not working a full-time job right now because I'm the first one who kind of stepped out and to take that entrepreneurship step forward, and he's working on it and we're working on things together. Like we are in the thick of becoming entrepreneurs right now.
Yeah.
So we're not rolling in the cash. Like we're not rolling in the dough. We have 3 kids in the house. We have a mortgage and 2 cars and all of the things. And so, but at some point, like you have to be willing to take that step and to, take a little bit of a financial risk. I'm not saying like, throw all common sense and, good stewardship out the door, but like at some point, that $7,000, machine investment or whatever it is, like it's scary up front, but when you stick with it and you're committed to it, like here we are a couple years later and you have this business that you can't even keep stock on the shelves long enough. I know like for a while you were like, it's out, and you were like, it's sold out like 30 seconds later. I'm like, what the heck? Like, how's she doing this, So that's incredible.
It's funny because coming back to something you said earlier about growing an audience, one of the reasons that I was comfortable making that decision is because I was listening to my audience and I trusted them. And so when we go back to that like whole influencer conversation, like we opened up with and joked about, the influencer world can feel really superficial and kind of like, but in my opinion, one of the reasons that I was able to take that step forward was because I had been so faithful to my audience that they were faithful back to me. And so like I tell anybody who's growing a business, like the first thing you could do that's free is grow an online audience. Not just for the purpose of your business, but like I'm so glad I started doing this years ago because it allowed me to pull the trigger on some business moves that I may not have been able to if I had been starting from scratch with, 100 followers on Instagram. And so, that kind of foundation and being able to listen. And again, that decision to pull the trigger and buy the machine was a lot easier knowing that my audience loved me and they trust me and they would be willing to at least try it. I knew I could probably get my $7,000 back, And so that's been really helpful when it comes to being an entrepreneur, is like who is around you and who is here for it and how can you make something for them that would bless them. And I've always said, my audience, they're real faces behind a screen. I actually lose a lot of money as an influencer because I don't want to ever make them feel like I just need them to click on my link. I'm not there to do commercials for people. I'm not that great. Like I just really want to hang out with moms and I want to talk about, losing babies from a really tender place. And I want to talk about postpartum and I want to talk about all kinds of things. And if you buy my stuff, cool, but I don't need you to buy my stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think that's another reason why we've had that kind of success is because my audience doesn't feel like when they come to my place that it's just a never ending commercial advertising,
Yes. Totally.
Who wants to watch commercials all day anyway? You know what I'm saying? Like,
right. Yes. No, I love that you.
I pay premium to skip commercials.
Skip. No, thank you for bringing that up because that is a really good point. Like, it's not like you didn't have a following or you didn't have an audience that was faithful and you were just, pulling stuff out of your butt to see what stuck. Like you did, you have a faithful audience. And so that is a really good point to make. And I, that's one of the reasons I love you. And I love watching your journey. And so, and the beef liver bites, like if I had little ones, I would be buying it. I definitely will be buying it if we, ever have, a little one in the house, because my husband and I, we're on our own health journey, for several years now. And there was a lot of things to consider. We were in a rough place. My husband was literally like, I don't want to say on his deathbed. That's a little dramatic, but I mean, he was in rough shape. So there was lots of things to consider when it comes to supplements and treatments and meds for him and methods and all of the things. And so, but beef liver is literally next on my list to talk to, because now that my husband is stable, because he was not stable for a while. Now that he's stable, it's like literally next on my list to talk to my doctor about. And, because everything's a financial investment too. You got to take things one at a time, and it's a slow process. But my doctor is a holistic doctor, so I know he'll be all about it, and he'll be excited to talk to me about it. But so I'm excited to see if or when I start taking it, what kind of effects it'll have on my health. So, but another reason I have just loved following you is I'm not exactly sure how old you are. I don't remember, and I'm not asking.
I'm gonna give it to you. I'm 41 and 10 months.
All right. Okay. 41 and 10 months.
We're doing that now. Just like kids are like 18 months. It's now 41 and 10 months. I'm almost 42, which is crazy.
And probably the healthiest you've ever been, honestly. I don't know that for sure, but I would, And so, okay, you're a little bit older than me. I'm 32. Yeah, I'm going to be 33 next month. I have to think now. The older I get, the longer I have to think about how old I am. And you're doing a lot of the things that I want to be doing with my life in the near future. Like, you're doing a lot of things that I'm like taking the risks now to set myself up for in the future. And, it might not look exactly the same, in the smallest of details, but in general, we're both women who love both the homemaking family side of life and also the entrepreneurship side of life. And, my husband and I are working towards building our own future wealth, so that we don't have to work 9 to 5s our whole lives. Like I said, I'm not even working a 9 to 5 currently. I'm the first one who stepped away from that life. And, we're in the middle. Well, we want to build a business together long term. And, we're in the process of buying other businesses to flip and grow. And, we're doing all those things. And majorly focusing on our health, our wealth, your future wealth. And like I mentioned, like, you're an incredible homemaker, and I have learned to love every aspect of homemaking. And I'm bringing all these things up because I get asked often, and I'm not even close to as far along as you are. How do you do it all? Like, you do it all. How do you do it? I'll show up on a Sunday morning and I post a lot about grief and the struggles, and I post a lot about that, and then I show up on Sunday morning and I'm full blown hair and makeup and the kids look great. And how do you do it all? And I also talk about how I keep my house. One of the things that I don't want to say take pride in, but that I'm good at is managing my house and keeping it up and whatever. So I'll walk in and people, how do you do it all? And my response is I always chuckle, and I'm like, I don't do it all. I just know what's important to me, and I go full force into the things that are important to me, and I say no to everything else. Yeah. So I'm curious if you get asked that a lot, and if you do, like, what's your response? Like, what is your actual answer to that? Because I know I just laugh, and I'm like, I don't do it all.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's on the minds of everybody, especially when we're following people online, because it's easy to look at somebody who has 7 kids and is running a business and saying, like, how are they doing that? And again, this is kind of like pulling the veil back behind the influencer thing too. I think there are a lot of influencers who have help and they don't share that. I currently don't have help yet. However, I have kids who are, my oldest is 13. I have 13, 11, 10, and almost 9-year-old. And so I am not doing everything like I was when I was 32. When I was 32, I had 4 kids, ages 5 and under, and the standard of living was way down. The bar was VVV low. Okay. I am not running. I did not have the same capacity then like I do now. That is something I practice. Just like any skill, you are not very good at the skill until you practice over a long period of time. And so when people ask me that today, is like, how do you do it all? We got to remember, my husband is here. He's home full time, 24/7, 365. And my kids are older now, so we have lots of helpers, lots of delegation. And also the flip side of that is we don't do what most people do. Like, my kids aren't in sports. They're not in any extracurricular activities. We have we love margin. One of our favorite things is like slow mornings. I'm usually up at 5:30 out in the shop from like 5:30 to 8 in the morning, but I come in and we're hanging out until 10:30, drinking coffee, hanging out as a family. We're very slow. But when we do get to work, it's really intentional. And so we just, we don't put a lot of things on the calendar. And I don't think that that's talked about enough because people feel this, and I've experienced this, the temptation to just fill my calendar and do all the things, especially when we think our kids are going to miss out on opportunities, or they're not going to be, very well rounded in their giftings, or everybody needs to be in soccer, or everybody needs to be, and I'm not against extracurricular activities. I just haven't found a way to do it with 7 kids that makes sense. Like I can't, and I don't want to be away from my husband all day. I have friends who have 3 kids who are in all the things, and they're hardly together. They have 2 cars, and they're doing different schedules, and they're swapping, and they're having to buy all the equipment and things like that. And so it's just been one of those hard but also easy decisions. We really we don't have a big schedule. We just don't. I don't want to do. I want to drink in this time with my family. Like you were saying, people could have $1 million in the bank account, but if they don't feel good and they're not getting out of bed, what's the point of having all that money? And so I think when you feel good, you should really enjoy it and be present and have a slower life, the one that you can be thankful for, and you're not feeling like you're always on the hamster wheel, having to do all the things. Now, that being said, I also am very, like you, I'm very ambitious. I want to try things. I have 7 kids. I'm going to be, a grandma with like lots of grandkids. That's going to cost some big cha-ching. You know what I'm saying? So I am thinking about my future self and saying like, how could I create, a multi-million-dollar business over the next 20 years? So that way I could, have everybody over for dinner and it's never a problem for the grocery store and things like that. So I am thinking ahead. And I like to play the game, which is really important as an entrepreneur. I don't care about the results. I like the game. I like to see what I'm made of. I like to grow. I don't think you should go outside your comfort zone. I'm a firm believer that you should grow your comfort zone and do things that you're comfortable with, and then just push the limits again, kind of like when you're giving birth. You don't want to just like tear and push through really fast. It's good to like take your time and go slow and let that thing come down naturally. And I guess I like that game. I like seeing what I've made of, but also without having to compromise my health or have it dictate my schedule. And so does that mean other people go faster and have better results? Yeah, probably. I've never made $1 million, but I've not made 0. And I've not had to do the whole burnout conversation with my audience and say like, I'm out. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm here for the next 20 years and I love the game. And so no, I don't do it all. And we are talking about hiring help and things like that, but that costs money. And I'm not one of those millionaire influencers yet. So
right.
We're still trying to figure it out. I don't know about you, but cost of living, I make more money today than I did 2 years ago. And I feel like I'm in a worse position than I was 2 years ago. Like it is really hard out here. And so the game has been a different kind of a challenge this season, but I don't do it all because I don't sign up for it all. Mm-hmm. And I also have help. I really, and that has had some difficult decisions of like, I can't commit to this right now. I'm going to have to set this aside in order to go all in. And that takes self-control, and it takes, working through disappointment and, fear of like, where are we going to be if I don't start now? Like there's a lot of temptation to want to do it all, but I don't want to. I just really want to have fun with my kids and, I don't know, see where it goes.
Yeah, no, I love everything you just said. Like, I resonate with so much because that is exactly like what we're working towards right now. Yes. That slower, intentional living. Like, who cares if you have a ton of money in the bank if you're not bonded with your family, and when your kids move out, you're a stranger to your spouse, like all of these things. And yes. And I love that analogy that you just gave, like that slow, like kind of growing your comfort zone rather than busting through. Oh, I love that. But so many things you just said there, I just want to like touch on, because one, the fact fact that, you know, you mentioned you have kids that are a little bit older, like your life doesn't necessarily look like it did, like, you know, when you had all little ones.
When I was your age, our schedule was even cut more in half because my husband was working 55 hours a week 10 years ago. And us being where we are today was literally a pipe dream. Like we were working towards that, but we couldn't even fathom it. Like we knew what we wanted, but we didn't know how it was going to arrive. You know what I'm saying? Different seasons.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Exactly. Like everybody's, you know, there are so many different seasons of life. I actually just on one of my last episodes, I had Craig Ballantyne on, and that's what we talked about. We talked about, like, you have to know what season you're in. Like, you have to know what season you're in life, and you have to know what you're going for. Well, first of all, know the season, know what you're going for, and then say no to everything else. Like, and that's another thing that I, you know, talk about all the time is like, you're doing too many things. Like your calendar is too packed, and you know, we do have our situation's a little different with our kids. They're not biologically ours, and so you know, when it comes to schooling, like right now, and I won't even get into that, but you know, for legal reasons, they're in the public school.
Yep.
Because they have to be.
Right.
And so we do what we can with what we have and what we're allowed to do and all of those things. And so, but they're not allowed to just do everything. You know, they have like one thing that they're allowed to do and that's it. And it depends on how many nights a week it is and how much of our time it consumes and all of those things. And so, but what I think people miss is all of those things are your choice. Like we don't have to have that insanely busy, crazy schedule just because we have kids. Like I think people let their kids run their lives. And I'm like, you know, it doesn't have to be like that, right? Like, you know that you can say no without depriving your kids. Like, it's not like a...
Not deprived. I mean, they're so resilient and they learn new skills. Like, boredom is the best thing that ever happened to my kids. And I feel like that is something often overlooked. Do I often feel like, man, I feel bad because my kid's not, you know, at the top of the choir or doing all these plays and things like that? Like, sure. I think to myself, like, am I making the right decision? And also I understand that I have to make hard decisions. I'm not going to get out of that. And to me, it's harder for me to try to figure out how to fit that in rather than it is for me to figure out how to pay for therapy later when they feel like they missed out.
No, you are so right. And the other thing that I want people to hear, like, and just realize with the lifestyle that you've created is even just because of the lifestyle that you and your husband have chosen to live, your kids, without going to the public school, without extracurricular activities, without all the extras, are learning the most important life skills they could possibly be learning, which is
like my kids make money. I pay them to work in Elbee's. Like they get paid every week on Fridays, and I'm like, y'all are rolling in cash. That was never my story. Like they get the behind the scenes of creating content and making a blog. And my kids are like, maybe I should have a podcast one day. Or, you know, they're learning how product manufacturing works and where we get our shipping supplies from, things that I never learned in school or in extracurricular activities. Like they're going to be walking out of here with the decision, like, am I going to work for someone else or am I going to work for everybody else? Because as the owner, I work for them. I have to pay everybody. You know what I'm saying? And so they're getting a taste of that now. And that's not a bad thing. It's not. I don't think that's for everyone, but it's the path that I feel the most comfortable taking right now.
Yeah, I love that so much. Yeah, there's so many benefits to living that lifestyle. And I hate to switch topics so quickly, but I really want to leave some time to talk about this. So I just want to talk about the trying to conceive journey, because I think I have a lot of women who will really resonate with it. So my husband and I are currently trying to conceive. I actually just released a podcast today. Just kind of, it was very like raw. I literally just like sat behind the mic and I just talked. And I cried and I quivered. Like, you know, I got through it, but I just updated everybody, like what life looks like, trying to conceive after loss, tying in the grief and all of the things. And so I just want to talk about that because I know you're super vocal about it too. And you even have a private group that I'm in that's literally just for women who are trying to conceive. And so there's so many women out there that struggle with this, even if it's not this crazy, decade-long infertility journey. Like, it doesn't matter what the journey looks like. It's that innate desire.
Yeah, you can start trying yesterday and you've already got mind mess. You're already in it. Like,
exactly.
You decide to try, you're like, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? How do I know what's right? Like, there's so many questions. Like, we just need each other in that process. It's wild, even if, regardless of how difficult it is, it's hard and we need each other. Yeah.
Yes, it is so hard, and that desire is so strong. Like, it's a strong desire that God has put inside of us, and so when it's a struggle, it's like, it's hard. Like you said, it's just hard. So we need each other.
We need friends
that
we can talk to about our charts and what we're doing and what cycle day we're on and what supplements are you taking, and like, oh, it's not my month, I'm out, and we all like, come in and say, I'm so sorry, like, this sucks, it's going to be a really hard couple days. Like, I just think being in a space where other people, where we can talk about it and kind of disarm some of that isolation that you're talking about, like, it can be a really isolating topic. And so when we're doing it together, it's not as hard, it's hard in different ways.
Yes, because
they got pregnant, I did it. Like, obviously there's still some mind mess within groups. We can't avoid that. But again, like, you're going to either have mind mess by yourself or you're going to have mind mess with other people. And I think we're social creatures. So I think it's a good idea that we're there for one another, even when it's hard.
For sure, because it's such a personal thing. And when you're doing it alone, like, it can be so isolating, like insanely isolating, especially if you throw grief or loss into it, or you've had a stillbirth, or even just a miscarriage, like anything like that. Like, it can feel so isolating because, for a couple reasons. One, people don't talk about that side as much or as blunt or show as many details on the I just talked about it in my last episode. I was like, every month when I get my period, and it's like, all right, I'm sure you weren't sitting there thinking like, hey, tell me about your period. But it's like, but that's the hardest part about trying to conceive, is when I get, so like, I'm going to look you in the eye and I'm going to tell you what it feels like when I get my period. You know what I mean? So I just want to give you the opportunity to, share anything that you feel like is the most important parts that you've learned about, a TTC stands for trying to conceive, for anybody who doesn't know what that term is. Anything that you want to share that you feel like is like the most important thing that you've learned, whether it's about God or yourself, just the journey in general. Like, what are like some things that you have learned through it that you feel like other women can benefit from hearing, because you've been through it, and you've also been through a devastating loss too, so you have that lens on it as well, and a lot of my audience does too.
Yeah, so what's interesting is, and maybe I don't know if you knew this or not, but I was diagnosed with PCOS 15 years ago, and they told me I had a less than 1% chance of conceiving naturally. And so we were talking about adoption, we were talking about foster, we were talking about, and those things. Okay, so I will say this to people who are trying to conceive, and people just tell you, well, you could foster or you could adopt. That is a separate calling.
Oh, yes, it is.
That is a separate calling, and the people who are called to it will be equipped to it. And so it's not a backup plan. So I have very strong opinions, and I don't voice this very often, but I have very strong opinions because you don't ever want to undermine someone who's trying to conceive. Now, sometimes I know people who were called to adopt and ended up conceiving, and that's fine. I'm not against it, but those are like, for the people who are trying to conceive and you're hearing, well, why don't you just do this? And then you feel the shame because maybe you're not pulled toward that. You're not, that's a calling that's different. And of course, all believers were called to take care of orphans and widows. And I'm not against that, but it is, it's a fight that you really do need to be equipped for, and you need to be, prepared for. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yes.
But I would say, like, if you've been deemed infertile, don't make an agreement that it's always going to be that way. I remember my husband met this lady, and he was talking with her. This was before we were ever pregnant. And she's like, oh, tell your wife, I was told I was infertile too, and now I have 5 kids. And so that story, it stung when I first heard it, but I was like, you know what? My hardest work right now is just to keep my hopes up. And I knew what I could control, which is the health of my body, the diet, and my husband's health. And keeping our marriage healthy was the main goal, because it's really hard to conceive when you're not on the same page with your spouse. It's hard. It only adds more difficulty. And so, the life lessons that I've learned when it comes to trying to conceive is obviously knowing my cycle, knowing my body, making sure that we stay healthy, asking basic questions like, how long do I really have to conceive? So I kind of, and maybe I should share a little bit of my MO here and why I'm talking about it now in my 40s, is because last time I checked, we're supposed to start our cycle anywhere between, 15 and 16, and it ends in our like mid 50s and at our 60s. And so right now it's such a wild culture to be in, because they're, everybody's saying like, wait until you're old enough, wait till your 30s, but don't go over age 35. Like a 5-year window, otherwise you're considered geriatric. So what I'm trying to do in the trying to conceive community is to come alongside of women who, maybe their health is down, or they're married. Like I'm just trying to encourage them that you're young, you're healthy. This is a good desire. I want to, equip you with how to know your cycles, how to track, but not become obsessive. Some people don't do really well with data, or some people don't really do well without data. Everybody has a little bit a different agenda when it comes to this. But I want you to enjoy the process. I want you to experience what it's like to be in your body, and pay attention to the weeks where you're like, man, I'm in a good mood and I'm frisky and I want to go to a concert, and then the weeks where you're like, I hate everyone. And like, we got to laugh about that. Like we run on cycles. And so, enjoying the process, having hope deferred makes the heart sick. And so, I mean, I'm kind of in that vulnerable space with you guys in that group. I've had, 12 cycles, and in the last 13 years, I've never had 12 cycles. I've usually gotten pregnant usually within 1 to 4 months postpartum, like after my first postpartum period. And so I've had a lot of children in a small amount of time. And so now I'm like, I'm in my 40s. What's changed? What are we doing? But I also want to have the conversation of like, should we still be having babies in our 40s and maybe even our early 50s? And that is way countercultural. Like, people are usually like, I had my 2. I want to be young when they grow up. I want my life back. And I just want to invite people into a different conversation that like parenting never ends. Yeah. And so it doesn't, and for the people who say like, well, you shouldn't have babies when you're old because what if you die? And I'm like, listen to the people who had babies in their late 20s and their husband passed away. What are you going to do? Like, they did the right thing, but they're still like that child is still going to grow up without a parent. So you have to, and sounds so dark and deep, but you have to kind of go back. Like, what's the purpose of parenting? And the purpose of bringing children into the world is because that's God's family economy. He loves people. He loves people. He gives them a soul. He wants to get to know them. The time that you have with them, we don't know any of that. We don't know any of that data. So for me, I do feel like trying to conceive is an act of worship. It's just being a good steward of your body, taking good care of your marriage, being alongside with other people, being there for each other when you're all in the same boat. And, just, I don't know, if the most fun you can have is to understand like, hey, when I get that negative test, I'm going to feel disappointed. And getting comfortable with disappointment without like living in the land of disappointment. So when the Bible says, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we're not setting camp in the valley. God didn't say build a house in the valley. Like we have to walk, and we don't have to deny it's a valley with a dark shadow. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's really important to remember that hard things come. And our job is to walk even when it's really, really difficult. And like you said, trying to conceive it's a very tender topic with a lot of women, especially with the rise of infertility and things of that nature. So,
yeah. Well, I love that you just said that, because I that's another question that I just have for you is, because trying to conceive is hard enough. And then when you throw in loss or grief or, just hard times in general, like whatever you're going, which everybody's going through, but those are the bigger ones. And,
Yep.
growing a business or becoming an entrepreneur, or, you've been very open about, your marriage had, a lot of struggles there for, I don't remember how long, but, you had crazy marriage struggles and all of these things. Like, did you ever, because I know you're a strong Christian now,
Yep.
but I know that you haven't always been, like, so through
Right.
these times, like, have you ever been to the point where I know you've had some tough conversations with God, and I know you've been in, tough times where you're like, probably like, God, why? But have you ever
Yeah.
doubted, like, has your faith ever been so rocked that you're like, is this even real? Because I know
Oh,
I've been there.
oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I just don't think that you can have a vibrant faith without doubt.
Yeah.
I just don't. I just think you have to. I was just telling my husband this the other day that I feel like I'm in a season with my relationship with the Lord that I can't do what I've always done. Like, I feel like he's calling me deeper and it's uncomfortable. And I have to have like conversations with him that I feel ashamed about because I should be more thankful. And I have this, should cloud over my head of all the things that as a Christian I should be doing. And I'm just like, oh, I'm just not doing that very well right now. And I need to know that God is, not only able, but like he's in it with me. And so I've had a lot of, I would say the doubt usually reorients me back into a deeper faith, but I'm not afraid to walk through seasons of uncertainty, because at the end of the day, and I've said this before, like, God does not drive an ambulance. He is not surprised by anything, but he's also not rude when I'm asking questions. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's really
Mm-hmm.
kind. And even now I find myself like, actually, I feel like I'm kind of entering a new, like, I'm kind of looking around. I'm saying, like, well, this has always worked, but I feel like I'm being invited to something new here. And that usually comes with like letting go of things that worked in the past that maybe I can't take with me into the future. We have this Christian saying of like new wine, new wineskins. And I don't usually participate in all of that, but I find that that is a very attractive message right now in my life because my kids are getting older. I mean, that 13-year-old could get married in 5 years. Like, technically she could get married in 5 years. And so I'm contending with a lot of things with having older kids, but also still wanting to have children and grow businesses. And I'm literally laying my fertility at the altar and saying, like, I'm open for my husband and I are like, next 15 years, if you want to send us babies, we're good. As long as we're healthy, and everything is safe and we're happy, like, bring it on. But also, like, what am I going to make that mean if he doesn't?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I think that that's the
Yeah.
contention is like when we have a desire in our heart and we want something, we can be really tempted to kind of take the ball into our own court and make it happen. Where it's really like what we really need to contend with and what we really need to bring to the table is, what am I going to make it mean if I don't get the thing that I've asked for? And if we make that mean that God doesn't love us or that we did something wrong, I think that that's just an invitation to learn how to take our thoughts captive and get to know him through the scriptures even more. That's an invitation to actually grow deeper into your faith. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm just like a regular human too. I've got, I've got sin issues. I've got control issues. I'm not doing as great as even I can portray on social media. I can only really give you 25 minutes of my day in my
Right.
stories on Instagram. Nobody's going to watch 25 minutes worth of stories anyway. We're all going to skip that. But
Right.
of course, in the dark times and in the times of uncertainty, I wrestle with that just like anybody, but I usually come back and God has been faithful to grow me stronger. So I would tell your audience, like, no matter where you find yourself, God doesn't drive an ambulance, and he's also not disappointed that you're asking questions. But I also think the invitation, and it's pretty clear in scripture, like, take your thoughts captive to the obedience of Christ, even when it hurts, even when it hurts. And again, if you can learn not to make that, like, the enemy would love nothing more than you to agree that God is distant from you and that he's aloof and he doesn't really care, or he's going to pull the rug out from underneath you. I just come back and I say, like, yeah, that's maybe that's going to happen, but it's probably based on the scriptures that I read. It's probably actually not true. There's actually a lot of promises here that I probably need to consider and bank on, because all other ground is sinking sand. And so that's war. That's war. That's a daily war. That is not easy. And also, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you, not on your own strength, but on his. And so you're equipped for that war. And again, I come to the Lord. Sometimes my best prayers are like, Lord, amen. I got nothing. Like, I have to trust that, like, he knows my heart. I don't know how to say it. I'm not going to say it right. I'm going to blow out. Like, I have all these thoughts and feelings, and like, I just need to know that I have a God that can, you know, cut through the noise and get right to my heart. And so I trust that even when it's hard.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that you are using the word uncertainty a lot, because I know in my life personally, like up until I had like some health struggles, like in a early 20s ish or whatever, up until really when our daughter was stillborn, I had a fairly easy life, like comparing to other people's lives. Like my life was very easy. And I'll say average, meaning like nothing crazy had happened. I didn't know grief. I didn't know loss. I didn't know like really hard times. Now I know that I didn't know that. But at the time, before I call this the old version of myself, thought that I knew what hard felt like I knew what hardship felt like. And really now that I can look back, I can see that it was really, I just was familiar with times of uncertainty. And now when I enter into times of uncertainty, I know the difference between devastation and really, really hardships. And this is just an uncertain time in my life. And those uncertain times of my life, in this weird, twisted way, now I can enter in going, hey, something probably pretty cool is going to come out of this, because in the most uncertain times is when I have to, you know, pray those prayers of faith and say like what you just said, like, I don't know what the heck to say to you right now. So I'm going to trust that you know my heart and that you know what my desires are and what I'm working toward and what I'm being faithful over. And I have to just trust. And that's a big part that people miss. A lot of people just go, Lord, like your will and blah, blah, blah. And you do that. It's like, well, no, we have to be faithful too. Like we're smart individuals. We're smart humans. Like we were given a mind and, you know, and creativity and all these things. But
once God's work. It's both.
Yes. Like we have to be faithful first. And then, I mean, God is always faithful, but we have to do our part too, you know, because that's part of, you know, why God gave us what he's given us and the resources and the tools and the community and all of that. But now, like, you know, when you've done a lot of that hard work and that grinding and you've really, really hit devastation and loss and infertility and, you know, infidelity and all of these things, now when you enter an uncertain time, you're kind of like, all right, what am I going to see? What fruit am I going to see on the other side of this? And I'm kind of excited about it. Like, do I like walking through the valley? No, like it's not fun. Like nobody likes walking through the valleys, but like, you know, that if you don't set up camp here, like you said, like there's something like really amazing on the other side. Absolutely. And so I really love that picture. And that's what I'm learning to do now. Like that is like in a summary, like the message that I'm trying to like get across to people, you know, like there is hope, there is joy again. Like there is, you know, you can still accomplish great things and do something amazing with your life. Like even if you hit the thing that you never thought you would hit. I never thought I would see. I was never the one, you know, the one in 34 or whatever it is of women who, you know, suffer a stillbirth. Like I was never that person. Like I had a super easy life. And so now being on the other side of it, like I know that a lot of hope is lost in those times. And so that's why I just love talking to people like you, because you're just another walking testimony that I can go see, like, look, she's doing it, you know, and you've been through the hard time. People want the life that you're living, but they don't want to do what you did to get to that point. And it's like, no, you got to do the hard stuff. But look, this is what it can look like, you know, down the road for you when you're faithful and you trust God and all the things. So,
yeah, speaking of that, I have one thing that I'll leave you with. Something that has been encouraging me as someone in their 40s. My grandmother last Christmas wrote me a nice card, and she's 87, I think, this year. And she said, man, what I would do if I could be 41 again. And that kind of struck me. And there's this couple that we have at church, and she's 91 and he's 94. They've been married for, I think 70 years or something like that, 72 years. Wow. And they have been through a lot, and they still have joy. Like, they are genuine, like they praise the Lord at church. And so when I see people like that who are ahead of me, they've buried 2 children, they've buried grandchildren, they've seen their family fall apart, they have been through geopolitical, I mean, they were born in the 30s, that's when our country changed. Like, they've seen the ushering in of television, they saw the ushering in of computers and cell phones. And so, like, when we're all like paranoid, like, what's going to happen with AI? Like, where are we going? Are we going to have robots? I always look to people who are older, and I'm like, if they love the Lord and they've saw all of that, surely I will be equipped to do the same thing. And so that gives me a lot of comfort in the uncertainty, because I mean, we would be crazy to not entertain the thoughts that, like, the other shoe could drop at any minute. We're not dumb. We can't deny that that's a possibility. We're seeing all kinds of crazy things on social media. And so it's ignorant to think that could never happen to you. But it's also an invitation that says, like, even if it does happen, I will have the capacity and I will be given the grace for that. I don't need to self-protect, and I don't need to hold back from taking risk, because I'm equipped and I'm empowered to take upon this risk. And even when I lose it and whatever, like, God is, I mean, I've had to say that over and over. Like, what if Elbee's isn't successful? I owe $250,000 to investors, like real people. And so I like, that was part of the calculation. Like, what would I do? And it's just like, well, but if I don't, what will happen if I don't? Right. Like, that's just as scary to look back and think 4 years from now, like, am I going to wish that I would have rolled the dice and taken the chance? And so, that's called tension. All of us as Christians live with, and like, what if everything falls apart? What if everything goes great? And it's that tension that creates beautiful music. That's how we get guitars. That's how we play the violin. You have to have 2 truths that are polar opposite, that pull on each other. And the music really is in the middle. And we are loved in that time. God cares about us and comes alongside of us. And sometimes he's quiet. Sometimes it feels like we're taking a test, and he's at the front of the room as the teacher, and we're like doing it, and they're like, he's really quiet. Like, but that's, again, you become resilient. And like you said, what you just spoke of for yourself that's resilience. You were never going to be the same from that time forward. That changed you, and it also brought you deeper. And there's no reason to, like, deny that. It's, like, you had, again, you said it happened, you had an easy life, or things were going really well until they didn't, and you didn't, like you're still here. Right. You're still here. You're participating in the game of resilience and reorientation and growing deeper in your faith and asking good questions. And that's the human experience.
It is. It is. And one thing that you just said, like, I'm participating in it, because a lot of people choose not to. Like, a lot of people say, that's it. Like, I'm done. Like, I don't care. That's where my life ended. At least I'm speaking from the world of talking to other women who have lost children, because that's where my experience is. But I'm doing this because I decided that I didn't want to be like that. And like you said, like, these scary things, like, I just talked about this, like, I'm scared to death to try to get pregnant again. Totally. And I'm scared to death of never getting pregnant again, because it's been my lifelong dream. So it's like, okay, well, I don't want to live with regret. I don't want to be that 97-year-old woman who looks back. I would rather look back and say, even if every pregnancy ends in a loss, I'm so glad I tried. And in a few years, I'll get to see them in heaven anyways. Then looking back and go, I can't believe I didn't try, So, and that's where I'm at in life. And that's why we're doing all the things that we're doing.
Well, and I mean, if you think about it, if you think of your life in terms of a movie, which movie is more appealing to watch? The one where the lead character doesn't get out of bed and doesn't try anything? Because I'm bored. Snooze. I don't want to watch that movie. Or do I want to watch the movie where she gets out of bed and she tries, and even if she tries 100 times, like, you have to commend her because she didn't quit. And so I tend to look at life from that too. Like this life is very short compared to the eternal things that are to come and the new earth that will happen and will be ushered in. And I'm so excited for that. Which again, it's like, well, if I only have, 90 years of living on this side, like, what do we have to lose? Last time I knew, we were Nepo babies. Like, our Father in heaven is like the most powerful person and entity in this entire earth. And so why don't we just behave like that and maybe look a little bit crazy and maybe, be misunderstood, but we're in good company. Like, what else are we going to do? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Oh my gosh. I wish it hasn't been an hour already, but it has. So I won't keep you all day.
We'll do this again. It's been so fun. I've just, thank you. I'm so glad that you're sharing these kinds of things with your audience too. And it's been really fun getting to know you in addition.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to you. I have truly loved getting to know you online and a little bit deeper here. And yes, I would love to have you back literally anytime. So anyways, thank you so much for being on and just sharing with my audience your story and all of the things that you're doing. Really quick before we sign off, I just want to give you an opportunity to just share with my listeners, like, just where they can follow you, how they can get Elbees, like anything you want to put out there. I just want to give you that opportunity to do that.
You're so sweet. I'm basically on every single platform, Leslie Burris. On all platforms. I'm on X, I'm on Instagram. I'm mostly on Instagram. That's where I like to hang out. I'm a millennial, so I'm hanging out over there. You can also find me on YouTube. I have a homemaking show over there, and you can find all my content. I have a blog and some podcasts, some timeless podcast episodes over at leslieburris.com. And of course, I would love to see your babies eat some beef liver, so come visit me over at leslieburris.com.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this episode today with Leslie. I know I did very much. A positive review is always much appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more episodes just like this one. I can't wait to chat with you all again really soon. Signing off for now, your hope dealer, Emmy Smass.